Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Genesis chapter 48 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and walk through the fascinating, plain text narrative of this really remarkable passage. We are going to look closely at every single detail of this encounter, taking our time to understand the literal meaning of the text, what we call the pashhat. We'll look at who is involved, what exactly is happening, and why it matters so much to the broader biblical narrative. We're going to unpack the history, the familial dynamics, and some truly beautiful Hebrew nuances along the way. So let's get started.
To make sure we don't miss a single detail, here is the exact step-by-step map of our chronological journey through the chapter. We'll start with the context of Jacob living in Egypt, then move through his legal adoption of his grandsons. After that, we'll witness a deeply emotional family reunion, carefully analyze the famous crossed hands blessing, look at Jacob's final promises, and finally, draw out our key takeaways.
Section 1. Context. Jacob in Egypt.
Before we look at the specific verses of chapter 48, we need to understand exactly where we are in the biblical story. A severe famine has driven Jacob and his entire family from the land of Canaan to settle in the land of Goshen, down in Egypt. As we know from the preceding chapters, his son Joseph is now a powerful ruler in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. Jacob has been living in Egypt for 17 years, and get this, he is now 147 years old. He's nearing the very end of his incredibly long, eventful life. Now, it's important to remember why Goshen is so significant. It was a place of isolation and safety. There, the Israelites could live as shepherds, somewhat separated from mainstream Egyptian culture, allowing them the space and security to multiply greatly. The family is safe from the famine, but Jacob knows his time on earth is quickly drawing to a close.
The chapter opens with a sudden, urgent message. Genesis 48, verse 1 tells us that sometime later, Joseph is told, "Your father is ill." Hearing this, Joseph immediately takes action. This is a highly somber, urgent moment. He doesn't go alone. He takes his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, along with him to visit Jacob. This right here sets the stage for what is essentially a final deathbed visitation. It's a moment of profound transition, not just for the family sitting in that room, but for the entire future structure of the tribes of Israel.
In verse 2, the text says that when Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to you," Israel rallied his strength and sat up on the bed. Notice the specific use of the names here. When the text says Israel rallied his strength, it's crucial to remember that Israel and Jacob are the exact same person. The text often switches between Jacob, his birth name, and Israel, his God-given name, which in Hebrew translates to wrestles with God or struggles with God. Hearing that his beloved son Joseph has arrived, the elderly, physically frail patriarch musters every single ounce of physical energy he has left just to sit upright in his bed. He wants to receive them with full dignity and authority.
Section 2. Adopting Ephraim and Manasseh. Let's see how this builds into a major shift for the family lineage.
In verses 3 and 4, Jacob begins by grounding his actions firmly in the past. He says to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and there he blessed me." It's incredibly helpful to know that Luz is the ancient name for the place Jacob later famously renamed Bethel, which in Hebrew means the house of God. Jacob recounts the divine promise he received there, that God would make him fruitful, increase his numbers, make him a community of peoples, and give this land as an everlasting possession to his descendants. By stating this first, Jacob is making it absolutely clear that what he's about to do is not just a personal whim. It's anchored entirely in the covenant God made with him. He's distributing an inheritance that was promised by God Almighty.
And this brilliantly illustrates how Jacob legally and spiritually adopts Ephraim and Manasseh. In verse 5, Jacob declares, "Now then, your two sons born to you in Egypt, before I came to you here, will be reckoned as mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are mine." This is a massive legal maneuver. He is taking Joseph's sons and elevating them to the exact same status as his own direct, first-generation children. He puts a strong emphasis on the fact that they are now equal. They won't just be grandsons anymore. They will become full heads of tribes, completely equal to Jacob's oldest sons, Reuben and Simeon. Essentially, the tribe of Joseph is being split into two distinct, powerful tribes. He adds in verse 6 that any children born to Joseph after them will be Joseph's, but for the sake of inheritance, they will be reckoned under the names of Ephraim and Manasseh.
Suddenly, in verse 7, the tone shifts dramatically from a formal legal declaration to a deeply personal, sorrowful memory. Jacob says, "As I was returning from Padan, to my sorrow Rachel died in the land of Canaan. While we were still on the way, a little distance from Ephrath, so I buried her there beside the road to Ephrath. To firmly ground us in the geography of the text, the ancient geographic marker Ephraim is the exact same location as the famous town of Bethlehem. Rachel was Joseph's mother, the great love of Jacob's life. Even now, decades later, on his deathbed in Egypt, the profound sorrow of losing her on the road to Bethlehem is fresh in his mind. He shares this grief with Joseph, honoring her memory right before blessing her grandsons.
Section 3. A grandfather's joyful embrace.
The formal legal declarations and the poignant memories now give way to a deeply emotional family reunion right there in the bedroom. In verses 8 and 9, the text tells us that Israel saw the sons of Joseph and asked, "Who are these?" Joseph replies, "They are the sons God has given me here." Now, the narrative logic here is really fascinating. Jacob obviously knows Joseph has sons. He was literally just formally adopting them a few verses prior. But Jacob's eyesight is failing drastically due to his advanced age. He can see that two figures are standing there in the room, but he cannot clearly make out their faces. This leads him to ask Joseph to physically identify the young men standing before him. Once Joseph confirms they are indeed Ephraim and Manasseh, Jacob asks for them to be brought close so he may bless them.
Verse 10 tells us that Joseph brought his sons close, and his frail father kissed them and embraced them. Then in verse 11, Israel says to Joseph, "I never expected to see your face again, and now God has allowed me to see your children too." Think about the sheer emotional weight of this moment. For over 2 decades, Jacob truly, deeply believed Joseph had been violently torn to pieces by wild animals. He lived in deep, unrelenting mourning. Now, not only has God preserved Joseph's life and miraculously reunited them, but God has abundantly multiplied the blessing by allowing Jacob to hold his own grandsons. It's a beautiful expression of sheer awe at God's unexpected grace in his final days.
Section 4. The Crossed Hands Blessing.
After this beautiful embrace, we arrive at the most famous moment in the chapter. Notice the physical positioning that creates the central drama of this text. According to verse 12, Joseph removes the boys from Israel's knees and bows down with his face to the ground, showing immense respect. Then in verse 13, Joseph carefully positions his sons for the upcoming blessing. Methodically, he takes Ephraim on his right, pushing him towards Israel's left hand, and he takes Manasseh on his left, pushing him towards Israel's right hand. Joseph does this highly deliberately. In biblical and ancient Near Eastern tradition, the right hand is the hand of power, authority, and the primary most significant blessing. Therefore, the firstborn, Manasseh, is carefully placed so that his blind grandfather's right hand will naturally fall squarely upon his head.
But verse 14 reveals a shocking reversal of tradition. The text reads, "But Israel reached out his right hand and put it on Ephraim's head, though he was the younger. And crossing his arms, he put his left hand on Manasseh's head, even though Manasseh was the firstborn." It's an incredible scene. The nearly blind Jacob intentionally and deliberately crosses his arms. He breaks the human expectation, completely bypassing the perfect physical positioning Joseph had just set up, intentionally favoring the younger brother with his right hand.
While his hands are crossed in this highly unusual position, Jacob delivers a profound blessing in verses 15 and 16. He prays, "May the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has delivered me from all harm, may he bless these boys." Notice the beautiful progression of titles here. God is the historical God of his ancestors, but God is also the personal, intimate shepherd who guided him every single day. And finally, God is the protector. In Hebrew, the word used here for delivered is goel, which actually means redeemer. This is the very first time God is referred to as a redeemer in the entire Torah. He prays that these boys will carry the names of Abraham and Isaac, and that they will increase greatly upon the earth.
In verses 17 and 18, we see the very real tension this physical act causes. When Joseph sees his father placing his right hand on Ephraim's head, he is highly displeased. Thinking his frail father has simply made a clumsy mistake because of his poor eyesight, Joseph actually takes hold of his father's hand to physically move it from Ephraim's head over to Manasseh's head. Joseph interrupts the blessing, gently but firmly saying, "No, my father, this one is the firstborn, put your right hand on his head." Joseph is merely trying to enforce the traditional order of things.
So the crucial point here is that Jacob is acting with full prophetic awareness. In verse 19, his father refuses to be moved and says, "I know, my son, I know. He too will become a people, and he too will become great. Nevertheless, his younger brother will be greater than he, and his descendants will become a group of nations." Jacob's physical eyes might be failing him, but his spiritual vision is crystal clear. He knows exactly who is under which hand. He absolutely affirms that Manasseh will indeed be great, but insists that God's specific, unalterable design is for the younger, Ephraim, to be even greater.
Section 5. Final promise to Joseph.
After the drama of the crossed hands blessing is settled,
Jacob turns his attention back directly to Joseph for a final set of promises before the chapter closes. In verse 20, Jacob solidifies what just happened. He blesses them that day, saying, "In your name will Israel pronounce this blessing. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." And the text notes, "So he put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh." By placing Ephraim ahead, Jacob creates a permanent, enduring phrase. To this very day, this is the exact standard of blessing used. Every Friday night at the Shabbat table, Jewish parents place their hands on their sons and bless them with these precise words, "May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh."
Finally, in verses 21 and 22, Jacob gives his last words to Joseph in this chapter. He offers a clear assurance, "I am about to die, but God will be with you." He follows this with a prophecy of return. God will take you back to the land of your fathers. They aren't going to stay in Egypt forever. And then he gives a specific gift, an extra ridge or portion of land, one portion more than his brothers. The brilliant Hebrew wordplay here is that the word for ridge or portion is Shechem, which is actually the literal physical geographical place where Joseph's bones will eventually be buried. Jacob concludes with complete, unwavering confidence in God's future deliverance.
Section 6. Key Takeaways and Lessons.
We've just walked verse by verse through the entire chapter. Let's quickly distill the plain textual facts we've just uncovered into a few clear takeaways that we can apply to our lives. This chapter shows a consistent biblical theme of upended expectations. Time and time again, God elevates the younger over the older. We saw it with Isaac over Ishmael, we saw it with Jacob over Esau, and now we see it with Ephraim over Manasseh. It reminds us that God's plans do not always align with human traditions or our standard expectations. We also see the immense enduring power of a grandfather's blessing, recognizing how God's faithfulness spans across multiple generations, as Jacob trusts God the Redeemer's promises even on his literal deathbed.
As we wrap up this explainer, consider how Joseph had to let go of tradition to accept the unique, crossed-handed way blessings sometimes arrive in our lives. Just like Joseph, we must sometimes accept that God's design works differently than the way we arranged it. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.